hello, locked beauties. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another long awaited lock video. It has been quite a while since I've done a lock video, and I thought because I have so many newbies still commenting here and there on some of my old videos, maybe it was time to make a new video. So today I'm going to address the newbies because that's who I hear from the most, are people that are still preparing, contemplating to get new locks, and so that's who I want to address. And I have been locked for quite a while. I have been locked since January of 2019. These babies have been here quite a while, but I still remember what it was like to have them in the beginning stages, to have gotten them all of the things. And so I wanted to share with you things that you could expect as a potential locked person, or someone already scheduled to get them locked, or someone who just got them and you're still out there searching for things to do and what's happening with your locks. So these are tips and tricks for the newbie locked babes. So let's get into it. So there are a few things that happen pretty immediately when you first get locked that you could probably most likely expect. Now, take everything with a grain of salt because every person's head, hair texture, lock thickness, all of that is so very different that some of this may happen to you and some of it may never happen to you. There's going to be people that say, well, that's never happened to me. And I believe them because everybody's hair is so very different. But some of this stuff is kind of universal, and so we want to talk about those. And one of the number one things that I experience and that I hear other people talk about in the beginning was bunching. It is so annoying, especially when your locks are thick or thinner or shorter rather. I think shorter is even what I'm looking for. When they're shorter and you're just starting out and you wash them, it's so annoying. And you start to get this like fat, like thin to fat to thin look. And the lock starts to kind of bunch up. And you start feeling like you look crazy and they look crazy. You want to snatch them out your head. It is a thing, girl. It is a thing. But it too shall pass. If you can, one of the things that I found to be helpful with that is to braid them up at nighttime and bind them like a little thin, you know, those rubber bands that don't pull your hair out at the end or something like that, because it really, or braid them down to your head. I don't know how to do that, but if you know how to braid them down to your head, braiding them down to your head so that they are stretched out and they're not having the opportunity to bunch. Bunching does happen sometimes just from, you know, sleeping without, you know, proper protection of the lock, and sometimes when you wash them it happens. So if you keep them stretched out and keep them, you know, and not stretched out like stretching them thin, but just, you know, like bound together, you get less of the bunching effect. So, but bunching is a thing. It really is. And sometimes your loctician can help it and sometimes can't, but do expect to have a little bunching, even if it's just a lock or two, where you look at it and you're like, oh, that looks weird, kind of along the lock. It definitely does happen, and it looks like this like scrunched look of the lock is what it will look like. You will be unmistakable. You will know what it is when you see it. But if you just keep them bound, you can avoid that. On to the next. Since we're on the bunching train, let's go ahead and talk about slippage. Slippage is our kryptonite because it happens for so much longer than the bunching does. The slipping in the beginning can happen so easily. You have to be super careful. I remember when I first got my locks in 2019, I had just booked a trip to Riviera Maya and went to the beach and got them, went swimming and all the things. And girl, when I got back, them things were barely even in existence, okay? It was only locked at the end and not at the beginning. So the slippage is when something happens and they come undone, top or the bottom, mostly at the top. Then you have to kind of get them retightened because it hasn't locked yet. So if it hasn't locked yet, you can get slippage and they can come undone. Sometimes that's via just like, most of the time is when there's extra moisture in your hair, and the moisture or detangling products, anything like that, will cause the locking pattern of a sister lock particularly to slip out or loosen up and come out. It's the weirdest thing, because if you know how a sister lock is retied, it's almost like a little woven pattern. So you're thinking, how in the world does this even come loose? But somehow it does. And again, sometimes it happens from the ends, and so the ends come loose. But the worst part is when the roots come loose. Now, if you're going traditional, I don't know much about the slippage of those. I mean, quite naturally, they're only like rolled, right? And so I'm assuming if you do the wrong thing, they will come unrolled instead of staying rolled and locked. So, but particularly with Sisterlocks, the slippage is real. You do need to avoid moisture at all costs, and apparently seawater, because seawater definitely undid mine. And so just being very careful with what you're doing with them, and make sure you're not putting anything on there that has detangling in it when you're washing them with things that start with water, don't have a bunch of the detangling elements or products in them, because it will cause your lock to undo itself. And then some of these locticians charge you extra. At the time, mine got really upset because I was trying to ask her, like, what do I do? You know, I'm about to go on this trip and I don't really know, they were so tiny, I don't really know how to wash them properly and not make them come undone, and she wouldn't tell me. And so when I got back, she was mad because it pretty much looked like it had undone most of the locks. And so do make sure you watch what products you use when you're washing. For sure, do not put a bunch of oils or moisturizer in your hair when you're freshly locked at all. Basically, you're looking for bone dry desert is what you're going for until they lock up. Yeah, just be careful because slippage does happen. It happens for quite a while. I think I was in year maybe 2-ish before they really stopped tripping on me and slipping out and undoing themselves and all the bunching and all of that going on. So yeah, just beware of that. Slippage just happened. You can try to avoid it as much as you can, but it definitely can happen. Since we mentioned slippage and I mentioned desert, we're gonna go ahead and talk about keeping your locks dry and the flakes that come with it. So dryness is the topic. You want to keep your hair, your locks, I was told many times by many locticians, so this is not just me saying it, this is what I was told during my process, and it actually did help, as dry as possible. If you put anything on your scalp, I was told it needs to put directly on your scalp, but even that is a risk because it could still get on the lock and make it start slipping. So the goal was to keep them washed and moisturized with the Sisterlock product or products that are approved, because there's more than just the Sisterlock products. You can watch some of my other videos and see some of the products you can use, because I didn't use the Sisterlock products at all. But keep them dry and washed and moisturized with the proper products, but not be putting things on them every day. The rose water or just water is pretty much what you're approved to use, and not be trying to skip over that and use other stuff. With that though comes the desert, and with the desert comes, if you have dry scalp, the flakes. It was so bad. My scalp was so dry and so flaky, and then I was afraid of the flakes getting trapped in my locks, and so then there's more washing. It just kind of is like a little downhill roll effect. But keep them washed with the proper products. Keep them moisturized with the proper products. Spray them every day with your rose water mixture or your water mixture, whatever you're spraying them with. Stay away from oils, because the sooner you're locked, the sooner you can actually put oil in your hair and it does nothing to it. At this stage, I'm able to put almost anything in my hair and it doesn't matter. The only thing I have to be careful with at this stage are products that will get trapped in my lock and then show up as a white spot, cast, whatever. But I can put any kind of oils or whatever on them at this point, and that's what you're trying to get to. But to get to that means you have to let them lock, and to let them lock, you need to avoid extra moisture and detangling products. Your scalp needs to be dry. Your locks need to be dry for them to lock properly. So keep that in mind. Since we're talking about dryness right before this, let's go ahead and talk about washing. Since we talked about washing and putting rose water being the two main things you can do to try to combat the dryness and combat the flakes, and you want to keep your locks clean and, you know, hydrated within certain boundaries. But washing and bending, that's something else you can expect, and you can expect it for quite a while. Y'all, it's probably one of the most frustrating things for me. I'm super tender-headed, and so like you know, plaiting my locks up and binding them with rubber bands and having these little ugly buckwheat, you know, twigs sticking out all over my head that don't lay down because they're stiff and they're short and they're sticking out, and they're tight, you know, to me, because I'm tender-headed at this grown age, was just my kryptonite. I hated it so much. And you're not supposed to have them so tight that you can't get your hands through there and, you know, get your scalp, but you do want to have them, you know, bound enough to where it's not, the rubbing and the washing is not undoing your lock. So I had to braid and band for a couple of years. It was not a quick thing at all. I do think that it has a lot to do with your texture of your hair, how quickly your hair locks, but your first year, forget about it. You might as well hope that it's somewhere in your second, towards your third, that you can stop doing it. And even when most of my locks locked that second year, that third year, there were still certain spots in my head I had to go braid and band, and all the rest of it could be actually washed. And I think at the time, the person that I was with doing my hair told me I could wash it, and it was still a little bit too soon. And so then I had to go back to braiding and banding. So the softer texture of the hair, from what I've been told, what I've heard, talking to other people, the longer it takes to lock. And then if you have like a tougher grade of hair, a thicker grade of hair, I think it locks better and faster. So just keep that in mind. Braiding and banding does low-key suck. And if you don't know what that is, again, that's taking a section of your locks like this, and then you are taking it and you're braiding it like a regular braid all the way down. And then once you get it braided all the way down, as far as you can possibly braid it to the end, you then take it and put a rubber band on it. And imagine this braid is all the way down here. And then you take your fingers and you just like wash in between and wash your scalp. And that's how you would wash your hair. And you do that until your loctician tells you that your hair is fully locked and ready to be washed like normal hair without being braided and banded. So it does suck. You can expect that for at least 1.5 to 2 years of braiding and banding. And that's just what it is if you want your hair to stay nice and to actually lock up. And again, I think the coarser textures lock up faster, and people who have that like super silky hair, I hear, really have a time getting it to lock up fast. So just expect that. Go with it and just know that it won't be forever. You just need to do it until it locks up. And if you do it and do it properly, your hair will lock up faster, and then you can move on from that and be able to just go in the shower and wash it like normal. So there you go. These next two I'm gonna kind of put together because they kind of go together. So thinning and losing locks. I'm gonna put a picture up of where I lost my first little lock tip. And, you know, thinning comes from so many different things, guys. Sometimes it's hereditary. Sometimes it's coming from, you know, different locticians in your head doing different styles, and so it's thinning it out. Sometimes it's too much tension on your hair if you're wearing your hair in hairstyles, and in a certain place, it's starting to thin out the lock. Sometimes it's using bobby pins to do styles and you're piercing the lock too much. There's so many reasons that a lock can thin out. It is unreal. But if it does, over time, it will get thinner and thinner, and eventually you will lose that lock. It is the most gut-wrenching feeling ever when you lose your first lock. And I don't know that there's anybody who hasn't lost a lock. So go on and get ready. This is definitely something you can expect. Sometimes it happens like early on in the lock stage where people have just gotten it done, and maybe it's being manipulated too much, or you know, just started wrong or something. And then sometimes it happens when you're very mature, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, I'm about to lose this lock because it's super thin here or it's super thin up here. I have lost whole long locks because for whatever reason, my hair in the area stops growing or start thinning. And then it just went from being like a full lock to this like super thin lock. And I'm like, I'm going to lose it. So you can expect over the course of the lifespan of your journey to lose some locks. And it might happen in your beginning lock stage, and it may not happen until you have very mature locks. I don't know that it may never happen because I don't know anybody it's never happened to, but it's always a possibility, right? But I do think it's something you can expect. And seeing the thinning happens, especially if you can't find the right loctician to kind of keep your hair, you know, steady, because then people are manipulating it all kinds of different ways. So just be aware of that thinning and lock loss is a thing. It does happen to the best of us, even those who take really good care of their hair. Don't freak out. It's gonna make you sad. It's okay. If you have somebody in your area that knows how to reattach them, save them, put them in a bag, and take them to them later, and they can reattach them for you. I am saving mine in my little area where there's hardly anybody. Nobody knows how to do anything but lock up, which is just so sad to me. But I'm hoping that one day maybe I'll travel somewhere or something and find somebody that knows how to do it and get them reattached. So anyways, just keep that in mind. Don't freak out. It happens. It's not funny when it happens. It's funny now, but it's not funny when it happens, because we take so long to grow these out, and you know, you want them to be long and healthy and all the things. And so when you do lose one, it's gut wrenching, but it will grow back. You can start it over and it will be healthy. And if you know somebody, you can get them added on. So there you go. Expect that. The next thing you can expect is the awkward stage. We call it the wet chicken stage. Oh my God, I look like a sparse wet chicken, and I am telling you no lies. But it is a test of your faith to your lock journey, because it's definitely one that will make you question your motives. Like, should I have done this or should I have not? But you know what? If you really want them, you will go through it like with anything else. Some things are uncomfortable at first, and then you get used to them and they start to benefit you. You're going to go through, most people go through an awkward stage. Now, what I have noticed is when the ladies go in and they have the already long, loose natural hair, it, to me, my opinion, already looks the bomb. It already looks good. They start out already looking like me, even if it's not locked. But if you have to start from little bitty like I did and let them grow out to become something, that stage will test your gangster, because you will look at yourself in the mirror and not even see yourself. It looks like cats have been just sucking on my hair just for days. And I was like, what is even happening? And I remember going to the hospital and my aunt coming in going, what is wrong with your head? And I was so embarrassed and questioning myself even more. But you know what? I stuck with it. And then here we are today. So just expect that if you're not starting from a head full of long natural hair already, where when they lock it up, you already looking like, you know, elongated and stretched out. If you're having to start from short or medium, when they do it, it's going to go from this to this, and it's going to have you feeling some kind of way. I'm going to encourage you to not do too much. Okay. Now, this is just my opinion, okay? So y'all don't come for me in the comments about, you know, it's weird because people who already have locks will watch these videos. And I don't know if they watch them to pick them apart or what happens. I don't know. But those of you who have been there, done that, watching this video, don't come for me for my opinion. This is my opinion. I have seen people combat this awkward stage to me in ways that weren't very productive in the end. And they ended up having to start them over, cut them off, not liking them, not liking how they're being shaped up because they did too much. I don't think that wigs are great. I don't think that wigs are great for budding locks. I don't think that getting braids over them are good for them. The tension that it puts on your scalp, period, point blank, is not great. And then you are taking them and twisting them up in something else. It just is not great. To me, the best thing you can do is embrace that stage and utilize other things. You can utilize, if it's cold outside, I used those head wraps. So I Googled, YouTubed different ways to tie head wraps. I went and bought me a bunch of scarves and head wraps and rocked the heck out of them head wraps till summertime. And by the time it was summer, I had a little growth. Now, if you know my journey, I started from perm, and so I barely had a couple of inches locked. So I really looked like nobody knew what was going on with my head, okay? But by summertime, I had rocked those wraps so much that I had a little bit of length to do something with. And then all summer long going forward, I did braid outs every single day, and I was getting compliments on them. And so I didn't cover them up. I didn't, with like braids or crochet braids or weaves or anything like that. I didn't do any of that, no wigs, none of that, because I wanted my locks to lock up and not be ruined by extra manipulation. So take that with a grain of salt. Do what you want to do with your head. I just think that if you're going to do this journey, and it wasn't a spiritual journey for me, it was just a journey, and I wanted to go through the journey. So I didn't do the adding on of locks. I didn't do any of the wigs or any of that stuff. I just let myself go through that awkward moment so I can appreciate what it's like today. So embrace it if you can. Braid outs are your friend. They are your friend. You can do head wraps, baseball caps, whatever, but just try not to manipulate them too much and let them grow and do their thing. You'll have less of the bunching and less of the slippage and all of that stuff going on. Just embrace this weird, awkward stage, or let your natural hair grow out some more before you go get it locked, and that way you won't look as awkward with it. Next is growth frustration. Y'all, it seems like it grows so stinking slow, especially if you're already starting off very small like I did. If you're not already with the long natural hair that you're getting locked up where it already has length, it feels like it takes 999 years for it to grow out. It feels like, is it even growing? Take a lot of pictures. Every month, at least take one length check picture. And over time, you will look back and be like, man, it really has grown. The lack of growth, or what seems like the lack of growth, what feels and looks like it, to me is what makes people go and get the instant locks and, get the add-ons. And I've had friends do that and ended up literally just cutting all of their locks off. Now, I know there's people out there who have also done them and just cut off the extra lock later and they look fine. To each its own. But I'm just saying, like, I think because it seems like they grow so slow and we can't really see the growth until you look back on it, I think that makes people jump, like, I just want instant long locks, instead of being able to kind of like enjoy the journey along the way. So just know that it does feel like they grow slow. It feels like it takes forever to get hang time. If you don't already have hang time, take a lot of photos. You will be able to see your growth really soon. Do the things you're supposed to do and take care of them, and they will be growing. Just know that, and you just need to take pictures so you can look back on them and see that they actually have grown. I also had a checkpoint, and I'm like, okay, my bra strap is going to be my checkpoint. When it reaches my bra strap, I know we done did something. But it started out with when it reaches my ears, when it reaches my shoulders, when I can no longer see, and I can do this and it doesn't swing on my shoulders. And then it was when it hits my bra strap. Now it's like when it goes past my bra strap. So kind of set you some like goals, growth goals of when it hits here, I know it's grown. And there's a little, I think I have a short on it, and it's like, if your locks are past your ears, you know you done did something. So yeah, set you some milestones, and that will help you, as well as the photos. The next thing you can probably expect are the rude comments coming from friends and families, not so much strangers, mostly friends and family, and the lack of support. When I got these, y'all, nobody but my daughter wanted me to get these and supported me. Everybody else was like, oh, well, and my brother who already had locks, everybody else was like, what? You want to do what? Why are you going to do that? I remember getting them done and my sister being like, what did you do to your head? Why did you do that? You had all that long, pretty hair. Why did you do that to your head? And then like my aunt coming into the hospital going like, what's wrong with your head? It was just, and my mom had nothing to say about it. So you could tell she didn't want me to do it. It was really discouraging, but I had looked up enough pictures of beautiful women with beautiful locks and had made up my mind enough that I was like, I don't care what they think. I don't care if you don't like it. It's not for you. I'm not going to tell you it didn't hurt my feelings every time somebody made a comment. I remember my ex-boyfriend's mom going to visit and him saying, his mom saying like, what, she looked different. What's going on with her head? Y'all, it was like comments from every angle. And it can really discourage you and make you want to give up after a while. But make up in your mind that you want to do this, as well as give yourself inspiration to have pictures and this is what I want to reach and accomplish. And it will kind of help deaden those people around you that are not supporting you. But you can pretty much expect for, if not most, some of your family members to not be supportive of the movement, especially if you've always had long, pretty, straight hair, or if they're stuck in that mold of, you know, unfortunately, we as Black people love the bone straight, long, you know, weaves, and, you know, thought of having the long hair swinging down your butt. And so if people are stuck on that, they're going to look at locks and kind of be like, no, or that's not going to look good on you, or whatever. This is for you. It's not for anybody else. It is for you. So if you want to do it, you like it, you have pictures in your phone that you've looked up that are inspiring to you that you want to reach, do it and they'll get over it. Because you know what? Now, so many people in my family, extended family, have copied me and gotten locks. So many friends have gotten locks. Must not have been too ugly or bad, right? Must not have been too much of a bad decision, because there's a lot of copycats. And so I'm just saying, and then you will get your validation from people out in the world all day long. I get stopped constantly, even when my hair is like at its worst and needs to be done. I still get stopped and get compliments. So take all of that negativity that you might get from your family members with a grain of salt, husbands included. I've had wives come in some of my older videos and say, my husband doesn't want it, he hates it, blah, 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 blah. Girl, they will get over it, okay? They will get over it, they will get used to it, and eventually like it. It is hair. It is not the end of the world. So if it makes you happy, if you want to do it, and you think it's gonna look good on you and make you feel good, do it. The next thing you can possibly expect is possibly a hard time finding the right loctician. Now, finding the right loctician is about like finding the right man, or the right hairstylist, or the right nail tech, or the right anything, right? It is a gamble. It really, truly is. If you get a loctician and on the first time it's a great relationship and you've kept that loctician for years, you are one of the lucky ones. You are so lucky. And you probably might even live in a bigger city. When you live in some of the smaller cities like I do, it is very hard to find people. And if the ones around you don't work, then you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck trying to go outside of your city to find somebody who will actually work for you. And then that means a lot of driving and commuting, and that gets old. So it is hard to find the right loctician, whether it's, I've experienced like bad attitude locticians. I've experienced locticians like doing things they weren't supposed to be doing without permission, like cutting my hair. Without me knowing, I've experienced just all kinds of stuff. And I just think that some people are in it just for the money and to get that quick coin, but they're not in it to take care of your hair. I've had some do my hair but didn't give a dang about the grid. And if you know anything about Sisterlocks, it's all about the grid. And so my grid got really jacked up because one girl was just locking and she was connecting stuff all every which way. You have to be so careful with your hair and who you have in your hair, and make sure that they have the same goals aligned for your locks that you have aligned for your locks, that you can feel comfortable speaking up to them about what you want and you don't want, and not feel intimidated because this person might give you attitude. So you can expect, if you haven't found that gold mine the first time, to kind of have some trial and error with finding the right loctician. It is hard. And I think that's why a lot of people even turn to doing their own locks, so they don't even have to deal with people anymore. So I trained my daughter to do my locks. And so for the most part, I have her doing them, and, you know, just throw her some money, because at least I know I can say like, hey, I want my grid, my squares as straight as possible. And she listens. So, and it just shouldn't even be like that. It shouldn't even be like that. I think we paid way too much money to get our hair done, to be fussing and fighting with somebody over what we want our hair to look like. But it does happen. So do expect, if you haven't found that right one, to kind of have some trial and errors, but make sure you search for one that you can talk to, that makes you feel comfortable, that listens to you, that's not going to push you to do anything, that's not going to do anything they're not supposed to be doing. take your time and find the right one, but you can expect to have to go through a couple of them. This one's kind of funny, but you can expect to experience HIH syndrome, hands in hair syndrome. It really is a thing, especially in the beginning, because they're so thin and they're like little noodles and they're so different. And I just remember finding myself just like running my hands through them over and over and over. Y'all don't do that as much hardly any now. They just here at this point, you know. But I remember in the beginning, like touching them because it's just so cool and they feel so neat. And I remember my mom being like, why are you always touching your hair? Why are you always touching your hair? It is a real thing that happens and you don't even know you're doing it sometimes. I think they say it's good to practice not doing that because you don't want to mess with the hair and like pull on them and you know, do the whole thinning out thing, or pull them, you know, be manipulating them so much that you're working them loose. But it's a thing, y'all. It's a thing when you first get them done because it's something so new and so like different for you. They feel cool when you've got the, you know, the grid in there. You can run your hands through your hair. They just feel neat. And so you can expect to have HIH syndrome. It happens even when you don't want to. Because I remember after my mom said that, getting mad at her, but also feeling embarrassed because I'm like, am I doing that? And so I was trying to consciously stop doing it and still found myself always like touching them and rubbing them, doing this and rubbing my hand through them. It was just so different and so neat for me because I've never had them. I've only ever had curly or bone straight hair. So you can expect to have HIH syndrome. It is really funny. It really is. We are wrapping it up, guys. But one of the last things I want to say is you can expect to have loc comparison. And that is definitely the thief of all joy because, you know, as they start to grow out, they start to bud, they start to mature. Even the budding process is like different and frustrating. You can expect to be like, man, why don't mine look like hers? You know, because our locs are literally all so different. You can have the picture image in your phone, and it's good to have just to kind of keep yourself motivated while you're going through the beginning stages and not get demotivated and want to comb them out or cut them out. But as they start to actually grow and bud and do their own thing, don't expect for your hair to look exactly like the picture in your phone. Don't expect your hair to look exactly like mine. I would go to Little Caesars, I remember one time, and there was a lady in there that had them. And I thought she had micro locs because they were so tiny, but they were like so crisp and so freaking neat. And they were just like perfection. They had a little curl at the end. Every single one were like the same size. Whoever did homegirl did her right, okay? And I remember standing there with my little ends all bunched up in places, you know, and because I had been through several locticians trying to find the right person after people were doing crazy stuff. And I was frustrated with mine. I mean, they were there, they were budding, they were growing, but I was frustrated with how they were turning out because they weren't just being like these straight, thin, nice locks. The girl had messed up my grid. And I remember like, man, they don't look like hers. I just don't even want them anymore. Don't let yourself, and now I get all the compliments. My grid is still not crisp and clear and perfection. But I definitely still get all of the compliments all of the time for my hair. And I actually am on the thicker side of a Sisterlock. I actually asked for a thicker size because my hair was already thin and I didn't want them to be thinning and popping off. And so I found myself comparing myself to her, even though we were in two different lanes. Hers were so thin, they almost look like micro locs and not Sisterlocks to begin with, first of all. And also, maybe she had gone to whoever started her locks and never left them. So of course the pattern's gonna be perfect and nicely thin, and they're gonna care about the grid because that's who she started with. And so just make sure you're not comparing yourself to the pictures you see, to the people on Instagram, to the people you see here behind the screen, because your locks are so unique. They're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to do what you help them do. And they may not look like somebody else's, and that is okay. As long as they look good to and on you. That is the key. Last but not least, and I'm sure there's others, but for what my brain can think of right now, is going to be loc discrimination. Now, that has changed so drastically over the years because locs have been so much more widely accepted in the professional realm and almost all realm. And like now we have, you know, folks of every race trying to get them as well as us. And so it's just not as taboo and as shunned as it used to be. but you could possibly, don't know, don't think so, but you could possibly run up on the right situation, right company, and they not like them or want them. Now, again, I've seen professional men now have them pulled back, you know, into a ponytail, running their business, doing their thing. And in the workplace, it's like, I, as a therapist, is what I am as a therapist. When I worked for a company and not for myself, they could care less. It wasn't even mentioned. What I can say is, a few years back when I worked in the jail, because I was in law enforcement for like 10 years, it was an absolute no. No locks, no braids, no any of that. It was crazy. For some reason, they literally didn't want us to have any of the black styles. We could wear straight weave, but we couldn't wear any of the like twists or braids or locks or any of that. And so when I think of discrimination, I think of stuff like that, because that definitely was exactly what that was. Because there was no good reason why we couldn't have that. But I feel like that's not as common today in the adult realm. I feel like it's much more accepted, especially since like there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. This folks got like 5 different color hair walking up in places now. So I don't think you'll experience it as much anymore, but just know that there's a possibility for that. But I just am hoping and praying that that is just not really a thing anymore. But you might expect it depending on where you're trying to get a job at or where you're working. So, but for the most part, people are on board, or they don't even know what it is. So they don't even say anything about it and don't care. It's hair. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay, beauties and gents, that is it for today. I hope that if you are well on your journey, thinking about the journey, doing your homework to contemplate the journey, or you just started, that some of this is a little bit helpful for you. I do have many other videos in my playlist that you can view that I have worked on since the beginning of my journey. I do hope this has helped you some and kind of give you a good overview of some things to expect so that you can go do your homework and look for them. Again, I do have several videos in my playlist where I go into more depth about like products that I use and tips of things that I did to kind of help myself along the way. Y'all, my locks have been through some things because I have been through some people, some stress, medications, all kinds of things that affected my lock journey. But here we are, and as you can see, they're doing just fine. So I wish you a beautiful lock journey if you are about to get locked. I know several of you have reached out like, I'm about to get locked. I'm so happy for you. I hope that they turn out to be everything that you want them to be, no matter what kind of lock it is. I mean, there's a million different types of locks now, not just Sisterlocks. And so I think they're all beautiful, most of them. I don't really like certain things, like the stumps and all of those. I'm not really my vibe, but all of the 2-strand twist and the you know, Sisterlocks and micro locks and all of those, I think they're all beautiful. And so I hope that whichever one you choose for, and even the traditional locks, that's really what I wanted. I just couldn't get them. But we'll save that for the other video that you watch as to why I chose Sisterlocks. But I hope that your journey turns out exactly the way you want it, and that they turn out beautiful, and just be patient. And before you know it, you will be locked up and ready to go. So if this has been your vibe, do not forget to hit subscribe, check out the playlist and all the things that are in there. And yeah, I hope you come back to see me again later. Bye for now.